This is a Ferrari 550 Maranello. More specifically, it's my 550 Maranello. And this is a little video tribute to one of the YouTube automotive legends, Mr. Doug DeMuro. Now, being a 1990s Ferrari, this thing is of course packed full of unusual quirks and features. These old cars are pure Doug bait. But having now owned this car for about a month, there are a few things which I felt Mr. DeMuro got a little bit wrong. And so I'm here to address those. But in the greatest Doug fashion, I of course have to add something as well. And so I'm going to show you a few of the quirks and features that I think he missed out. Let's get started. If you haven't seen his video, now's probably a good time to stop and go and watch that and then come back to this one. But let's begin where he did, shall we, with the front overhang. It is definitely a big problem on this car. Now, speed humps, you don't really have to worry about too much because the car is overall not that low. But it's multi-story car parks that are the true enemy of any classic Ferrari. In short, just avoid them. But the problem is actually a little bit worse than Doug may have made out, because this doesn't look too bad. But if you look under here, you'll see that the car actually gets even lower. And with a big old dry sumped engine in there, you don't want to be hitting anything metallic. In fact, it's a very common trick of many Ferrari owners to fit something a little bit sacrificial under the front of the car, and that's been done with mine. There's some strips of metal down here which are going to hit the ground before the bumper. Makes a hell of a racket, but it will save your Ferrari's paintwork. And here's some bonus facts for you. The 550 was one of the early cars to introduce the idea of an options list to Ferrari, at least as we know it today. The very early cars, you couldn't really choose all that much. Exterior and interior colouring, that was about it. However, a few years into the production run, you could actually customise your car a little bit more. For example, this rear parcel shelf, which here is carpeted, could instead be covered in what they call a sort of 250 style leather, which had a diamond quilt stitch effect. You could also have some carbon bucket seats. You could even have a full and very rare carbon interior on them. And you could have some different modular wheels on here too. Now, back in 1999, Ferrari in the UK actually worked in a very different way to how they do now. You had your dealers, of course, but every single Ferrari vehicle up until about 2004 was officially imported through Maranello concessionaires in Egham. You've probably seen the name if you've looked through the paperwork of any Ferrari pre sort of 2004 or so. Especially when you look at classics and things like that, they will nearly always have been supplied by Maranello. The simple reason for that being that they were the sole official importer of Ferrari until a few years ago, when Ferrari started selling cars direct to dealers. Now let's talk about the boot, shall we? Because according to Doug, there is only one way to get into it, the button on the center console. Well, that's not strictly true. If you've seen Harry Metcalf's video on the 550, you'll know that there is a little lever under here which can be pulled and will manually disengage the latch on the back. However, on my car, it doesn't currently work. So for my example, Doug is actually correct. And I need to get that sorted sooner rather than later, because if, for whatever reason, the electronics on the boot failed, I suspect the bill to fix things would be slightly scary. And now let's talk about some points that Doug raised regarding the interior of the car. Now, on the vehicle he was in, there was a blank switch on the center console. However, comparing his video with my car, I can see that what he was missing was one of the fog light switches, and that presumably is simply a territorial difference. I know in America they don't have the same rules and regulations as we do over here in Europe. And yes, I can imagine it'd be very annoying if you just dumped $160,000 on a sports car in 1999. But equally, you've got to remember, Ferrari only made 3,000 of these things worldwide, and remaking small pieces of plastic trim are a lot more expensive than you think. The other thing he said was, why does a Ferrari need a sport mode? Well, having been a Ferrari owner himself, I'd have thought Doug would know exactly why. You see, in this car, sport mode does actually change a few things. It firms up the suspension, which doesn't make the biggest of differences, but it does make a difference. And it will also loosen off the car's very rudimentary traction control, allowing a little bit more slip and play for when you're having a little bit of fun on the roads. And I would say it's actually a button that, unlike in many vehicles, is very much worthwhile pressing. The other item Doug discussed was the immobilizer system in these cars. Now, I'm willing to accept that there may be variances between European and US specifications. However, on quick glance, it seems like they are the same system, which is different for the 550 than it is for, say, an early 355. So in the 550, you've got very basic, very common for any real 1990s car, simple key, nothing fancy in there, and your immobilizer fob. Now, the idea is that when you first unlock the car, which you just do by pressing this button, the car will be ready to start for about 30 seconds. And you can tell that by a little light up here. Now, because I've been filming, this car's immobilizer has, of course, gone back to sleep. And you can tell that by the fact that the little red light on the dash up here is flashing. In Doug's video, he says that then to reinitialize the immobilizer system, you have to lock and unlock the car. And that is one way of doing it, but there is a much, much simpler way. You simply put the key into the ignition, turn it, you then press the button, the immobilizer system will wake up and you can start the car. Having owned an old Ferrari, and indeed I'm sure driven many 1990s cars, I'm surprised that Doug didn't know that. Shame on you, Doug. Doug missed another quirk with those center console switches too. Although at any point in time with the car merely open, you can in fact unlock the boot, you can't do the same with the petrol filler flap. For that, you need the keys in the ignition. And I'm sure that's led to many, many moments of panic when people have borrowed their friend's Ferrari, gone to fill it up to find that they cannot open the fuel flap door. The beautiful, classically styled 5-spoke 18-inch alloys on this car actually have a couple of quirks. First off, they seem like they're very, very far inset, but it's not actually as bad as it looks because the rear runs a fair amount of camber on these as standard. That being said, I'm still tempted to space it out a little bit, which will make the car just sit that much nicer and maybe make the rear a little bit more stable, but I'm on the fence about that. If I do decide to do that, Hill Engineering will be the only people I'll go to because they make some really decent, high-quality spacers, because let's face it, you don't want eBay spacers on your Ferrari. Now, these wheels also should be magnesium alloy, but owing to some problems with some early batches, Ferrari decided to swap all of them out for aluminium. So if you are going to buy a 550, do check that you've got the aluminium ones on the car. Although, to be honest, these days, I'd be very, very surprised if any magnesium ones were still about and in use, but you do still see the odd set up for sale on eBay. And this car has one final party trick. What you do is you take your keys out your pocket, you turn on the ignition, it'll make some crazy beeps at you. You then open the petrol filler flap, like so. You marvel at the beautiful aluminium fuel filler flap that to me is just one of the many things that makes a Ferrari that much more special. And then you can amaze your friends by doing this. That is, if you can ever learn to put that on with any grace. Now, I have here one industry standard wallet, credit cards, cash, money, bit of change, all the usual stuff. And then you be very, very careful. You hang on. Empty. Completely empty. Worth it though. And there we have it. This has been my take on Doug DeMuro's take on the Ferrari 550 Maranello. I want to say a big shout out and a thank you to everyone that has watched, listened, and hit the subscribe button. We have now hit the magic 100,000 mark. It is incredible. It is unbelievable. Thank you so very much. And of course, a big shout out to the big man himself, the Dougiest of all Dougs, Mr. DeMuro. Love your work. Please keep it going. Thank you. See you for the next one. Bye-bye.